after I've interviewed Joe, we will meet as a group. Hi, I'm Marita Golden, and welcome to tonight's program, Can We Save the Children, Black Youth, and the Post-COVID Mental Health Crisis. Tonight's multi-generational panel discussion conversation is also a relaunching of my book, Saving Our Sons, Raising Black Children in a Turbulent World, first published in 1995. We've all come through a very challenging and difficult period, which we're still in to some extent, that has exacerbated existing problems in our society, but also has shined a light on the issue of mental health in the larger society, and mental health in the Black community as well. And I'm really excited about the panel that we have tonight. The ages range from 17 to 75. So we're going to have a discussion that's impactful and diverse. In 1995, when Saving Our Sons, Raising Black Children in a Turbulent World was published, homicide was the leading cause of death for young Black males. Black communities had been defunded of jobs, resources, and the kinds of institutions that create healthy neighborhoods. The result was, in the parlance of that period, the war on drugs, Black on Black crime, the Black male as endangered species. This was an all too common, corrupt, and misleading lingua franca of the period, and Black communities nationwide were soaked in blood and grieving. Against this backdrop, I wrote a book about raising my son, a loved Black male. I wrote about raising him for a while as a single mother post divorce, trying to do everything I could to literally save him from death and dying, getting him a big brother, starting a single parents group, going to therapy on my own and with him, creating surrogate family to supplant our own, enrolling him in after school programs, instilling him with Black pride. I also wrote about uniting him with his biological father and raising him with the guidance of his father, and when I remarried, his stepdad, Joe Murray. I was gratified that this book, into which I wove my stories and the stories of others, spoke to so many readers. It became a bestseller. I was featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show. But what mattered most to me was that so many parents, educators, communities, and individuals felt that the book spoke to them and offered them a source of healing and a source of direction. Today, homicide remains the leading cause of death for Black males, and every day in America, 4 Black women are murdered by a spouse, a partner, or a lover. We didn't talk about the girls back then, but today we do. Today we must. We're in the midst of a searing reckoning with the legacy of the emotional toll of violence and racism and its impact on Black youth. The crisis predates COVID. Even in the mid 1990s, we knew the storm was brewing. How could Black communities in Washington, D.C., and other cities, for example, lose 400 young Black men a year to gun violence and there not be a mental health crisis for those left behind? The language of today is different, but signals the same crisis, now recognized as an American crisis, not just a Black crisis. Systemic racism, Black Lives Matter, mass murder, and social media and cell phone videos have imprinted the names onto our hearts. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor. My publishers reissued Saving Our Sons, feeling that the book spoke as passionately to the present as it did to the past. This new edition has 50 pages of resources for caregivers and parents and anyone who wants to save Black youth. Can we save the children? How can we not save the children? I'm going to read throughout the program short snippets from the book to give you a flavor of the book and a flavor of the kind of consciousness that was dictating my writing. As the mother of a Black son, I've raised my child with a trembling hand that clutches and leads. I am no slave mother, my sleep plundered by images of the auction block. I dream instead of my son slaying the statistics that threaten to ensnare and cripple him. Statistics that I know are a commentary on the odds for my son, who isn't dead or in jail. And though I've paved a straight and narrow path for my son to tread, always there is the fear that he will make a fatal detour, be seduced or hijacked by a white or a Black cop or a young Black predator or a Nazi skinhead or his own bad judgment and weakness that even I, as his mother, cannot love or punish or will out of him. And I wrote that 27 years ago, and it's a feeling that many Black mothers, many Black parents still feel today. So tonight's panel, as I said, is multi-generational. We're going to be talking to Michael Coyote, Sasha Alston, Dr. Raquel Martin, Joseph Murray, and Novon Lee, and I will introduce each of them more in depth as we have our individual conversations. I first want to start tonight talking to my son, Mike. Michael Coyote is the inspiration for Saving Our Sons. Michael is a social media influencer and host of the YouTube channel, AKA Nation News. He's married and the father of a daughter. He lives with his family in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Mike, you know that I wrote this book for you. I wrote this book after you asked me how God would let two of your friends die of gun violence, and I didn't know what to say. So, being a writer, I wrote this book. And Joe and I decided to put you in boarding school. I want you to talk to the audience tonight about how you felt back then as a 13, 14-year-old with this weight of this violence as a threat, so much that we felt we had to put you in boarding school, and the emotional impact.
Well, it was a lot different in those days because there was no social media. So you just knew what you saw and what you were around. Like living, I think in those days we lived in Northeast and Northwest, different neighborhoods in Northeast and Northwest, and it was just like it was just part of it. It didn't even it wasn't even like it's just like black people. That's just like what black people do. You know what I'm saying? That's like if you go to a black school, you're gonna have fights all the time. And you're gonna have, a lot of chaos and whatnot. And I learned that, going to basketball camps, because I went to some basketball camps as a young man, and I saw how New Jersey, it was the same thing in New Jersey. It was wherever the kids were from, New York, it was the same thing. And that just was like how it was to be authentically black, was to be from a rough area where there's a lot of murder and there's a lot of fighting and there's a lot of a lot of people are tough and hardcore and whatnot like that. And if it wasn't like that, then it was considered like a white area.
What were the emotional, the mental burden for you?
Well, it's just it was rough. I got jumped. I got and now bullying went both ways. I bullied people and I got bullied. So it's like I seen it from both sides of it. You know what I mean? You know, it just it was like I didn't even know that I was bullying the people that I was bullying. I just thought it was just normal to be like a jerk. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody else was a jerk to me. But it was like not even like that. It was just with like joning. They called it joning, and so it's like it was constantly. You got to be on edge. You know what I'm saying? You got to be on
Sounds like,
edge.
yeah, it sounds like toxic masculine, what we didn't
Yeah,
call then, but
yeah.
today
You
we
didn't have
call
those
toxic.
terms back then. You didn't have
Exactly.
all those terms. You didn't
We're
even have
talking,
bullying.
yeah,
Bullying
we're
wasn't
talking,
even the term.
yeah, bullying. Yeah. We
It
now
wasn't
call
even.
it toxic masculinity. What were the trade offs for going to boarding school? What did you
Um,
lose? What did you gain?
Well, I mean, just consistency, like every day, is the same. Like I remember one time, like when I was I think I was in the ninth grade. We were on the train one day. Like we used to act like jerks on the train coming home from school. And one day this kid got on the train with a afro, and we were like clowning him. I'm talking, but we didn't know the kid from a can of paint. He was just sitting there taking it, and we just clowning him. And then the next day or a day later, like maybe like a week later, I'm getting on the train coming to school, and I'm not with all my friends because when we get out of school, we all get on the train together, and then we go to our separate stops. But in the morning when we're going to school, we all coming from our separate stops. So I'm by myself and I'm coming to school, and this kid just attacks me with a knife, and I'm running. You know what I'm saying? I'm running through the station and whatnot, and it was thank God it was some guy going to work, some like businessman or something going to work there, like grabbed him and whatnot, and separated us and whatnot, and I didn't end up getting stabbed, and that was the same kid that we had made fun of a few days earlier. He was mad, and little did I know he lived in the apartment building down the street from where we
So
live.
bullying has consequences.
Yeah, yeah, but he and then that later on I went and I snuck in Joe's room, and in Joe's little drawer we had all the knives he confiscated from his students, and I got the biggest knife that I could find, and I carried it with me every day from that point until I went to board school.
And that's a situation, unfortunately, that many kids back then and today find themselves feeling that they have to be armed um, for a variety of reasons. Um, what were the choices you made, the personal choices you made when we talk about saving our sons? When I talked about saving our sons, I didn't mean only from death and dying. I meant personal choices as well. What are the personal choices you made that, quote, saved you as you grew into manhood?
Um, as far as like even to go back to what you were saying about boarding school, like when I went to boarding school, like it was it was like paradise, man. It was like everybody was most people was nice. You had, you know what I'm saying, you had jerks and a-holes everywhere, but the majority of the people was nice. It was food, everybody was safe. It was like the only thing that happened, I think, in the 3 years there was like one girl, she went like running because it was a big campus. She went like running like out into like the cross country course, and then some guy like attacked her. But that was the only thing that happened, really. The whole 3 years I was up there, as far as violence, and it was safe. You know what I'm saying? It was safe, and it was, you know what I'm saying, and I learned so much. You know, I learned different things like that, Eastern European history and stuff like this. I learned a lot, man, and they had enough black kids up there to where you could just hang around the black kids and feel like it was an all black school. Like they had like, you know what I'm saying? It was if all the black kids and the Latino kids kind of hung together, and there was some cool white kids that hung out with us, but it's like you could insulate yourself. You could feel like,
Mhm,
okay, it's enough
mhm.
black kids here. You know what I'm saying? So and they were all from urban areas. All the black kids there was from Newark, New Jersey, the Bronx, Philly. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. And so and then what I mean, like they was real hood kids, but they were smart hood kids, and they got scholarships to go there from these programs. They had a lot of programs that would take these little tough little inner city kids and send them to boarding school, and that's what we had up there. A lot of black kids, and it was just good, man. I had a great time there, man. It was the best 3 years of my life, man.
Okay.
Up until that point, up until like maybe like it was for a long time, it was the best 3 years of my life.
So we saved you. It was a it was an
I
investment.
mean, for that 3 years, I mean, I mean, and then also, coming home like on the breaks, like when I came home, I wanted to, I still had that Jones in my book because, like, I mean, like I had a bad bone in me. You know what I'm saying? Like I stole. You know what I'm saying? I was stealing and all that stuff before I went to boarding school, And I was still out of every store I went to. I remember one time I was with you at Kinko's and I was stealing, and the guy caught me and he came and told you I was stealing. I mean, I just was bad, man. I had a bad I wanted to, do bad stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like that's stealing and all the stuff like that. I wanted to do bad stuff. I remember the time they caught me stealing at CV at People's around the corner. The
Yeah.
police brought me home. I just wanted to do bad stuff. So when I came home on the week, I mean,
So let's talk about the personal choices you made to turn that around before we move on to Dr. Martin.
well, I just want to say that the only reason I'm painting the picture, I'm just trying to make it seem like I'm not trying to act like I was some angel or something like that. You know
I
what I'm saying? Like,
understand that.
yeah. But it was like the personal choices that turned that around was just
Hmm.
basically like kind of like you got to kind of separate yourself. Like
Hmm.
that's what boarding school did. It like separated me from other kids like that because I wasn't a leader. I was kind of a follower. So even though I would want to be accepted. So I want to do bad stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's why I acted out in school and clown teachers and made fun of teachers and stuff like that. But it's like when you separated, when you're around other kids, like at West Time, them kids were studying, man. Them kids were smart, man. There was some smart kids, man. I mean, like them was some smart black kids up there, man. And they weren't into stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So it's like I think the only really way you can save somebody is really to separate them. And sometimes you can separate people without sending them to boarding school. You can
Mhm.
just fill a day up with activities and keep them like Novon with sports and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That can save you. I wasn't that good at sports at that time, so you know what I'm saying. I didn't get good at sports until like I got to West Town.
Okay. Thank you, my son. Now
Hmm.
we're going to go to Dr. Raquel Martin. Dr. Martin is a licensed clinical psychologist, scientist, professor who holds a PhD in medical and clinical psychology. She's completed her internship and postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins University and Kennedy Krieger Institute. She's published research regarding mental health disparities, health equity, and racial socialization. She's an assistant professor at Tennessee State University in Nashville. Welcome, Raquel. We're on a first name basis.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
My, my Instagram buddy.
Yes.
Let's talk about which, the sort of the framework for this is the post-COVID mental health crisis. But
Mhm.
talk about the ways in which this crisis, this mental health crisis, has been a permanent aspect of Black life.
I think it's always been there. I think more recently individuals and families are making it a priority to kind of focus on what's going on with us instead of when I think previously when we talk about mental health, the individuals that were focused on were European Americans and not Black
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
However, when people said there's a crisis, I think you tell anyone in the Black community there's a mental health crisis, and everyone's like, there's been a crisis. We just
Mhm.
haven't really been the focus. We haven't been focusing on us. And now during this time where so many individuals are saying like, I want to figure out what's happening with my child, we're going to focus on the Black community and understanding that the community and the collective identity of Black people is what really where we get our strength. That's when we're just like, well, we don't want to be considered in terms of the general. We want to talk about what is going on with us. And when it's not just about depression. It's about depression as a result of systemic racism. It's not about anxiety. It's just about anxiety due to being targeted, like in the recent shooting. Talking not specifically about in general, but talking about how racism and prejudice and discrimination links into the issues that we're suffering from today, because it's not like we're just walking around, and it's not like you can just think things better. A lot of times you
Mhm.
have mental health uh therapeutic
Right,
techniques, and they're just like, just think things better. And
right.
there's no amount of positive thoughts that can help me deal with the fact that I am scared to go into a grocery store, right? Like, it's not just us. We also have to deal with how we engage with the environment. And in doing that, race related stress is very different when it comes to Black mental health, especially Black youth and growing up. Like, think about seeing the news, and you're a young, Black male, or you're a young Black girl. And every time you see someone on the news that looks like you, they're getting killed.
Yeah, yeah,
That's something that European American kids don't have to deal with. So it's not
yeah.
solely about it's not just depression. It's depression as a result of discrimination, as a result of getting. So it's a totally different aspect, and there need to be more clinicians who are trained in dealing with racially related stresses. It's not just depression, it's depression as a result of racism. It should be a whole different category.
Let's talk about suicide, because for a long time there was this belief black kids, black people don't commit suicide, black kids don't commit suicide, and we're now seeing that a rise in suicide. And you and I talked a little bit in preparation for this program about the difference between actual suicide and students wanting to engage in self-harm. So talk about this quote rise in suicides post-COVID and the difference between wanting to harm yourself and wanting to kill yourself, particularly for young people.
Yeah, so I think if y'all don't take anything from me today, please realize that that is a myth that Black people do not commit suicide. They do. I think that's another issue where the focus isn't on us when it comes to data. I published something where the on Instagram where CDC mentioned that there was a decrease in suicide with youth ages 15 to 24. And then of course I pulled up the journal article, and it wasn't for Black children or children of color. For Black children, there was actually an increase in all ages 15 to 24, males and females. But for the people that they were focusing on as the priority, which is not Black people, there was a decrease, right? I think that, and it's important to understand that some individuals use self-harm as a coping skill. Now it's a maladaptive coping skill. It's not a healthy one, but it does provide them with some kind of relief. When I've dealt with children who have participated in self-harm, they've stated that feeling the pain feels better, the physical pain feels better than the emotional pain, and it gives them something to zero in on. Now, is it a productive coping skill? No, but it is a skill that helps them to manage in the day-to-day. Also talking about passive suicidal ideation, especially with youth. There's a difference between passive suicidal ideation and active. Passive suicidal ideation is actually pretty common. It's very common for people to have thoughts about death and wondering what that would be like, especially youth who are going through this whole existential aspect of it. It's very different to have active suicidal ideation when you're thinking about death. You don't want to be alive. You have nothing to look forward to. You have a plan. You are talking about seeking out that plan. You have items and things of that nature. They're very different. And sometimes when I'm dealing with youth or dealing with Black youth, they'll automatically think like, oh, it's something, I'm suicidal and it's this whole issue, and we'll talk about it. And they're but they're having thoughts about death. They're not having plans and things of that nature. So there's many different levels, and it's really important when you're working with children to acknowledge this so that they're not feeling isolated in their experience, right? So that you're giving words to things that they don't fully understand because they're newer in this world anyway, and they're not mental health professionals. But even when it comes to self-harm, acknowledging that you're getting something out of this, you're getting something from the self-harm, or you wouldn't continue doing it. It is a coping skill for you. It's not an appropriate one. You can clearly kill or significantly harm yourself. But what I do want to acknowledge is that we have to find something that helps you in that manner. And when it comes to suicidal ideation, it's very difficult for people to look forward to the future, for Black youth to look forward to the future when they don't have positive role models. The life that they're in is not very happy. Anyone who they've seen do well in this society are doing things that they can't gravitate towards. I had a patient one time who was like, the only people I've seen get out of this neighborhood are basketball players and drug dealers. He's like, I'm not tough enough to be a drug dealer, and he said I can't hoop for nothing. So it's just like, and he's sitting here like, what do I have to look forward to if that's the only examples that I've had, right? Specifically saying I don't want to go into one dangerous lifestyle and another one, I don't have the skills to go into another one. How would you feel?
So parents, since now mental health is a topic that has come out of the closet and we're talking about it, what skills do parents have to have? What should they be talking about with their children? What should they be looking for? What should they be doing? And I'm not necessarily talking about young people who are showing signs of depression, but just in general.
I always focus on normalizing experiences, starting with education, but I always focus on intentionally racially socializing your Black children. It's not enough to just take them to museums and show them Black history. It's not enough for the school to provide them information about Black history in February and things of that nature. You have to teach your child about what it means to be Black in the world, and what it means for them to be Black, or the world will tell them what it means. And it's not going to be a good message, right? So it's not only about historical figures, it's about Black figures in your community. It's not only about, activism. You can have activism through art. You can have individuals who do comic books. You can have people who are engineers, identifying and helping them gravitate to so that they see themselves in these identities. And also making sure that you may have to reparent yourself in a way. There are so many things that may be different in generationally, right? Like my mom always taught me to critically think and challenge things, except when it came to her. right? Like like, like I'm not, you just take the I always heard be smart in school, but when I tell you to do something, do it. And that's something that I am not taking with me in my parenting. Like if I have a very high threshold for what I deem as disrespectful. Like if you're asking me questions and things like that, ask the questions, but a lot of families, that's not what they grew up having. And because of that, in a way, we're kind of subjecting our children to what the world subjects them to. Black children don't get to be children for long. They're parentified, they're sexualized, and all, black men and black women. But imagine not being able to speak your piece and express your critical thinking skills and even have more questions in your home. We're kind of policing our children in the home as well. Now, most of it
Right.
is because as black parents, we're parenting out of fear, right? Like just like you said in the book, you want your children to come home. And in doing that, we have to make them help them act in a manner that's more aligned with European American standards or mainstream things. But I think what we need to get more used to is having them be comfortable with pushing the box a little bit. And in doing
Okay.
that, we have to reparent ourselves because it is uncomfortable. It is
Okay.
uncomfortable to be like, okay, you're dyeing your hair pink and your hair is in a huge fro. You need a job. I want you to be yourself as well. But they're
Right.
not gonna give you this job. They're not gonna give you,
Right.
and but then we're doing the same thing that society is doing to them, right? Like
Mhm.
why can't I wear my hair the way?
So
So
you're
I think in
saying
a certain aspect,
give black kids leeway to be more rebellious, to
well,
be
it's not rebellious though. Is it
to be
rebellious?
themselves, to
To
be
be
themselves.
themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, because we always, we've all heard that you got to be twice as good
Yeah.
to get half as far.
Yeah.
Think of the pressure and
Yeah.
how unfair is that? Why it's so unfair that we put that on our children. And I think if we get more used to our children being able to advocate for themselves and speak out against the fact that I'm not going to be twice as good, I have the
I
credentials, and
love
if
that.
you don't need me here, I'm not going to be here,
Okay. I love that.
then the whole environment will change. But I'm
Yeah.
so sick of other people being able to be mediocre,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like, we got to get A+s and I'm working for you. No,
Right.
no, ma'am.
Thank you. I love that. We're going to come back to that again, but I'm so glad to hear you say you're sick and tired of hearing everybody tell like you have to be twice as good, you have to be 3 times as good, and not thinking about the pressure and not talking about the fact that everybody else can be mediocre. Thank you.
Mhm.
But we'll come back to that. Before I move to my grandson, Novon Lee, I want to read a little section from the book where I wrote about the biases. Back in that period, 1995, 1994, Len Bias was a basketball player for the University of Maryland. And he was a first round pick for the Boston Celtics. And the night that he was signed, he came home from Boston, went to a party, and died of a cocaine overdose. His death became symbolic because of his stature of the problems with drugs, drug use, youth, and Black youth. And his mother, Lanice Bias, in the face of her son's death, became a prominent spokesperson speaking to parents nationwide about young people. And I did an interview in the book with her and her husband. And in fact, not only did they lose Len, but several years later, their second son, Jay, was murdered. So she said to me during the interview, she said that in her conversations with young people, she had found that very often there were all these mythologies and beliefs that they had that derailed them. And I say in the book, her voice rearing up like an engine, Lanice Bias ticked off the lies. She called them lies that young people believe on each finger. If I get all the material things, I'll be okay. If I join the right group, I'll be okay. If I do what the group is doing, if I disrespect adult authority, if I have sex, I'll be okay. And no one has a problem like mine. And at this point, I want to bring in my step grandson, Novon Lee. And I'm saying step, we don't use step in our family, but I'm using step just for clarification purposes. And Novon is the salutatorian of his graduating high school class, senior class at H.D. Woodson in Washington, D.C. He received an abundance of scholarship support for college, including the 2022 Innovation Scholarship of $10,000. He was a star athlete in high school, but he's decided to focus on academics when he attends Louisiana State University in the fall, and he's interested in accounting, psychology, and law. And I really wanted to have Novon on the program because this is a program about Black youth. And we so rarely hear the voices of young people. We adults, we talk about them, we study them, we analyze them, we talk to them. But I'm going to ask Novon the kinds of questions that we rarely hear young people ask and hear them answer. Thank you, Novon.
Hey, Mama Rita.
I'm happy you're here. We're all very proud of you.
Thank
You know, I want to talk to you about coming out of COVID and keeping your grade point average and getting these scholarships to college. What was your secret? Because I know you called Joe and I many times. I'm so bored. I'm out of my mind. If there's another day of lockdown, I'm going to go crazy. And yet you came out of lockdown roaring. So what was your secret? How did you keep your focus and come out of that situation succeeding?
I believe it was the fear of failure, like, being scared of failing. I feel like I always think 10 to 20 years ahead, because that's the adult life, and I just like, then I don't want to be having to beg or ask anyone else for anything or to help me. And I just realized that the next 3 years of my life will be the most important, because that will set where I will be within 10 to 20 more years. So yeah, I believe it was the fear of failure, just looking at having something as an outlet during the time of COVID to manage my time with. I had a job during that time, but I only worked for about 3 months. I worked at Tropical Smoothie, if you remember.
Yeah, tropical
Yeah,
smoothie.
not too
Yeah.
far from your house. And just finding something during COVID to take my mind off of being locked in the house, and then also having something to look forward to in the
Mhm,
future, to keep me going.
mhm.
And then it was also my counselors. My counselors
Okay.
texting me, checking up on, making sure I was doing my schoolwork and I was ready to apply for scholarships when we got back to school. So yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you talk about counselors, because so often schools in the quote inner city get a bad reputation. But we know in reality, there's so many teachers and counselors at those schools who are brilliant teachers and who are really dedicated to the students. So you had really good counselors and teachers mentoring you, right?
Yeah, I had Miss Ernice Stewart, Miss Consasha Folks, Miss Otley. All my teachers I have now, like Miss Oliver, she's a good teacher. Miss Fuchs, Miss Sanchez, Mr. Rogers, all my teachers are pretty good teachers. Even Miss Murray from ninth grade, I still chatted with her through COVID. She moved to Atlanta, unfortunately, but what I'm saying, we still talked during Corona. She made sure that I was always on track. So
Okay. So we're talking about a village. We're talking about your family, your mom, your dad, your parents, your grandparents,
my
and
coaches.
a family, coaches, everybody. So you are the result of a village. I want to ask you now, let's talk about mental health. Um, do you have any friends who've ever shared with you that they were depressed
All the
or
time.
suicide? You say all the time?
Yeah, all the time. Like on the daily, like I'm saying. I have a lot of close friends, what I'm saying, who, suffer with depression, anxiety, whether that's at home or with schoolwork. They get overwhelmed with schoolwork. It's a lot. Like, and I also see a lot of gun violence on the daily too. I mean, not to tap into that yet, but yeah, depression. I didn't had there was this girl who hung herself. She went to see, this was a few years ago. Another boy who, he didn't kill himself. Well, he jumped off of, I think it was like 3 stories he jumped off of. He was able to, survive. I had a lot of friends with cut marks on their arms.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of friends, a lot of peers with tattoos. That's their way of coping. There's a tattoo with a semicolon. Semicolon. That's like symbolizes the end of something. So I get it here. Same place where
Okay.
cuts at, which symbolizes that, you know what I'm saying? It's not the end. So yeah.
How do these young people, do they feel that there is no help for them? I know they talk with you as a peer, but what about adults in their lives?
I mean, I wouldn't really know how they feel, but you know, from my experience, I feel like a lot of adults think it's like, oh, back in my day it was this, back in my day it was that. But it's a lot different now. Saying like it's a lot different. There's a lot of outlets, you know, places to look at, but you know, everyone's different. Not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone thinks as if I keep going, I'll be here soon. It's always like if I end it now, the pain will stop. So
You sound like a psychologist already. But what I'm hearing you say is that these young people often feel that the adults don't get it.
yeah, I feel the same way though. I feel like a lot of adults don't get it. That's just my opinion.
No, well, you're probably right. You're
I feel
probably
like
right.
with my mom, I feel like my mom doesn't get a lot of the things that I go through, but I don't like sharing it. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather keep it together and just produce. Like I'd rather work, whether that's schoolwork, whether it was on the football, on court, whether it's working a job. Like right now, I work too. And not that I need to, it just gives me an outlet because I'm not playing sports right now.
Well, I think that you're emphasizing or echoing something that Dr. Martin said about Black parents needing to learn how to parent
Yeah.
children of this generation.
It's not enough pampering, I feel like. And when it is a lot of pampering, it's in the wrong way. It's always like, you know, you're this, you need to do this, or you're complaining too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, and in me, I don't like asking for help, and I don't know how to ask for help.
Okay, right.
I just feel like
And
a lot of my peers don't like asking for help either.
Right.
Not from the parents.
Because we haven't, in our community, we haven't necessarily said that you could ask for help.
Yeah.
And not be weak, and even the society in general.
And then also, you know what I'm saying, like a lot of people, they become depressed because they're not able to keep up with a lot of social media influencers. Like, you know what I'm saying, like,
talk about what do you do on social media? And is social media good for you, healthy for you?
For me, okay, so social media wise, I only really use Instagram and TikTok. TikTok is fun to me. Like, it's a lot of, you know what I'm saying, you scroll through TikTok. I make TikToks. They're fun to make. Gives me something to do whenever I'm bored. You scroll there at night. But Instagram, I like Instagram, but not much. Because Instagram, you know, a lot of people want likes on Instagram. It's like if you don't have a lot of likes, you're nothing. If you don't look like, if your body isn't like this on Instagram, you're nothing. If you're not dressed in a $500 belt, $200 pair of pants, $700 shoes, you're nothing. Like,
I love this. I love hearing a young person critique social media. Go ahead.
yeah, it's like if you're not light skinned with long hair, you ain't gonna get no Instagram.
Okay.
Like, if you know what I'm saying, if you ain't got a lot of money, you ain't gonna get no Instagram. Yeah, that's
So what social media platform do you feel is less harmful for you as a young Black male?
honestly, all of them have their
issues.
Their cons. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yes.
cons to a lot of social media, but at the end of the day, it just looks at it's just how you perceive social media, like how you look at it. Saying if you don't let it phase you, you don't let it phase you. If you don't let it tap into your everyday life, you're good.
What would you like young people, adults, to know or do that would make the lives of young people better? What are some of the things that we need to do?
Like your age?
Yeah. Adults who are in charge. Yeah, my age.
I would say be more understanding. Be more understanding. Like,
Okay.
I feel
So
like
that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mama.
Go ahead.
I just feel like teens, you know, young teens, we're not given an outlet because adults aren't understanding, or because adults want to be hard when they want to be hard on things, or like emphasize what they want to emphasize. You know, what they want to do. It's always, I'm the parent, you do this. It's never let me listen to what you got to say or what you want to do. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. It's not balanced enough. It's like the parents are here and the kid is expected to be here. And you know, once you voice your opinion, it's either disrespectful or you're overstepping your boundaries and stuff.
Okay. So Dr. Martins, advice about reparenting has been seconded by Novon Lee, representing young people, young Black people. Thank you. Thank you, Novon.
Welcome.
Now I want to turn to Sasha Alston. Sasha is the author of the groundbreaking children's book, Sasha Savvy Loves to Code. She's a sought-after speaker who encourages youth to explore educational and career opportunities in STEM. She's appeared on Good Morning America, has been featured in Forbes, The Atlantic, and Black Enterprise. A 2020 graduate of Pace University's Lubin School of Business with a degree in information systems, she's also the founder and CEO of Sasha Ariel Ventures LLC, and she lives in Washington, D.C. And Sasha, tell everyone how old you are.
I'm 24.
Stop. You, even more than my grandson, are essentially a child of social media, tech, and the internet. How did all of these groundbreaking inventions shape you, your goals, and your dreams?
I would say for me, as someone who's interested in in the tech industry, I try to use social media to network and connect with other people who have the same interests as me, whether it's technology, fashion, beauty. So it's really more so just an outlet for me to kind of meet like-minded people and also get opportunities. So I would say just through me, just through the content that I post, and then also how I present myself. I was featured in a Macy's back to school campaign, and then also a Disney campaign. And it was based off of the fact that they were really interested in how my social media platform looked. And they felt like it would be a great, I'll be a great fit for being a role model to younger kids. So I think that even though there's a lot of negative things around social media, it can be used for positivity as well.
How can young people engage in social media and maintain their mental health? Because there's so many studies around the toxicity of it, the ways in which it encourages isolation, alienation. It even can impact physical health because, people get addicted to it. So how can young people engage in social media and maintain their mental health?
So I would say, definitely social media can cause depression, anxiety, and health issues. So it's definitely just really important to know that social media is curated to show the most beautiful moments of your life. It's not real. And so everything that someone posts isn't necessarily what their life appears to be. So definitely keeping that in mind, and just also having a balance between being on social media and just also having meaningful experiences in your own life can definitely go a long way. And so really social media just has one purpose: to keep you on their site by any means necessary. So definitely limit your time by being on there. And also there's a movie, I think it's on Netflix, called Social Dilemma. And it kind of talks about how the different issues with people being on social media and how it's really used. The purpose of it is to have you on it as much as possible. So it was people from Facebook and also Instagram who actually work for the companies, and they were even addicted themselves. And so they completely deleted their accounts because they realized that it's addicting, even being a part of the company.
Why is one thing that I know a lot of adults, as my grandma would say, my age, may not understand, is why is online bullying so much more toxic than bullying? I mean, we grew up being bullied, and my son has talked about both bullying and being bullied. I mean, that's just a normal part of growing up.
Yeah.
But what is it about social media bullying? And we've had members of our own family who have been social media bullies, and we could not believe the things that they posted.
Yeah.
But what is it about social media bullying that pushes people over into a darkness that may not be familiar to many of us?
Yeah, so I actually just recently saw a study that showed that 65% of kids are actually bullied on social media through name calling, threatening language, and then also harassment. And so I would say probably within the last few years, I think it's because of the increased time of being on social media during the pandemic. And
Mhm.
so those stats kind of skyrocketed during this time. But I think the difference is like when you're bullied at school, typically you can go home and like hopefully find peace within your environment.
Okay.
But when you're bullied online, like there's no escape from it. Like you can even block somebody and they will create another page or they'll find you on another platform. So like I don't think there's like a true way to like not be bullied online if you are currently experiencing that, just because like the person, if they're really dedicated, they'll find another way. Unfortunately. So the best way to deal with it, I would probably say, is just to kind of like stay off of it during that time when you're being bullied. And also if you are the bullier, it's definitely important to like be mindful of like what you post, because that can definitely backfire. I remember like John Legend, his wife actually like bullied someone years ago, and it came out like within the last 2 years. And so she was like canceled on Twitter because like she was like being very rude to like a teenager.
Mhm.
And so it was like completely unnecessary. So just like kind of think about the type of things that you post online, because it can come to haunt you, whether you become famous or just like become successful in another way.
One of the most important things that I've heard you say is your real life, that young people need to have a real life
Mm-hmm.
that is more important than their virtual life.
Yes.
So that as parents, we need to keep them connected to real life.
Exactly. Yeah. So definitely just being outside and like experiencing things instead of watching other people experience things. Because I see like a lot of kids will watch another kid on YouTube playing a game or like eating when you can actually be doing that yourself. So I think just like creating like your own memories is really important.
I love that. Create your own memories. Why are Black youth more engaged in social media than white youth?
Um, I feel like I really don't know why, but I would say maybe because of like white kids unfortunately may be like more interested in like gaming, or their parents may require them to read more. I don't truly know the actual reason, but I will say that like doing anything to an extreme can be very harmful. So if we are considered like the ones that are like on social media the most, that's definitely not a good thing. And so the key is really just to like have balance, but also engaging in other things offline, like I've said previously, that bring you peace and just like harmony. So like, for example, your grandson saying that like his outlet is like working, like you can find other ways to do things that can bring you joy instead of like being on social media.
And also, a lot of young people see their parents addicted to social media, and that
Yeah,
sets the model.
exactly. Yeah. So I definitely I'm on social media, but I try to also spend a good deal of my time like doing yoga, working out, reading books, trying restaurants with friends, like just really finding other things to do outside of like being on social media 24/7.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Um, has social media empowered Black people, young Black people, in any ways?
I would say so. I feel like we have like more access to role models within like our prospective industries, or just like what we want to do or have an interest in. I think it's a way to network with like-minded people, and just really ensuring that our voices are heard.
Okay.
Basically, so like when in a lot of ways, we're able to like raise awareness on like certain topics relating to like social things and also political issues. So I think it's definitely a great way to do those things as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Before we go to the concluding one-on-one interview with my husband, Joe Murray, I want to thank Novon and I want to thank my son, Michael, both of them for being very honest about their lives. And I think we're not used to hearing people talk honestly about their foibles, their challenges, their fears. And I really want to thank both of them. That's what I hoped we would have tonight. So before I have the concluding one-on-one interview, I want to read another paragraph from the book. And in the book, Saving Our Sons, I profiled not only my son, Michael, and sort of a year in his life. I also profiled a young man named Terrence Brown, who was a scholar who was headed to college. And the night before he was supposed to leave for college, inexplicably robbed and killed an off-duty police officer out here in Prince George's County, Maryland, where I live. And he subsequently was tried and went to prison. And in about the 8th or 9th year of his imprisonment, he died in prison. And it was a inexplicable case because he seemed to have so much promise, and he derailed, he crashed and burned. I also profiled a young man named Mark Anthony Richardson, who was a student of mine in a writing workshop that I did at Antioch College. And Mark was and is a brilliant writer. He is now the author of several award-winning books, and he's a teacher of writing at the University of Pennsylvania. But in the book, he was a college student, and I got to know him pretty well. And we talked very openly and honestly, kind of the way my grandson talked with us tonight. And I just want to read a little paragraph from the section where he's talking about his life and his goals and his dreams. We talked about his father briefly, hesitantly, and while I watched Mark shift nervously in his chair as I probed him on this subject, I recalled the stunning, visceral scene in his essay describing a beating he received from his father after he broke one of the man's bowling trophies, how his mother came to his defense and his father began to brutally beat her as well. I remembered too how near the end of the piece, his father stuttered in rage at Mark as he arrived home from work one day. "You don't know what it's like out there, but one day you will." So now Joe Murray, my husband, is a retired educator who worked with young people from preschool to high school and adult education during a 40-year career in the Washington, D.C. public schools. As a teacher of youth and computers at Dunbar and everywhere else, he's mentored scores of young men and women and maintains an active interest in the lives of all young people. Joe, I want you to talk about what your experience was like back when this book, Saving Our Sons, was written, as a teacher, as a mentor to young people, and the emotional stress. We've talked about how the emotional mental crisis was festering back then, as Dr. Martin pointed out earlier. But you were deeply in the trenches working with young people, and the stress was on you and the stress was on the young people as well. So share a little bit of that with the audience. You have to unmute.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I also worked with older people. I worked in adult education. I worked in the colleges. And I had several part-time jobs as well as a full-time job. Not only were the young people being shot and killed in the neighborhood I lived in and worked in, a lot of the older people got killed too. And in fact, I was talking to some of my Vietnam veteran friends. I knew more people got killed than they did in Vietnam. It was so horrible. Uh, I talked to a student one day, the next day, they're dead. So a lot of the students, they weren't at the wrong place at the wrong time. They were where they should have been. They weren't, all of them weren't involved in drugs.
Mhm.
And they got wiped out, killed. And yeah, it's very stressful. It's very stressful because I remember one day, 5 of my former students got killed in 1 week. And I just recovered from being alive from cancer. You remember that day? I couldn't
Yes,
I
yes.
couldn't take it anymore. And what can I say?
Is there a difference between the conversations you had with Michael and the conversations you had with Novon about life and about being?
Well, it depends on what stage Mike was in, what teenage stage he's in. Before he went to the private school or after? Well, now Novon is amazing because Novon's one of the few people in our family who calls us. How you doing, Granddad? How you doing, Grandma? He called me Daddy Joe and call you Mama Rita. He calls us. And some of the males do call us. And you're talking about young people, but I think some of the problems were in those days, the guys were trying to get the interest of women, of girls. Some of the girls, a lot of the girls would chase the guys who had the money. But thank God, some of the young girls, they didn't deal with the people that were doing crimes. And I think things may have changed. I hope it's changed. But sometimes some of the good looking women I blame. Hate to say it. But the reality is we lost a lot of people in those days.
You said to me once that you could almost predict the young people who might be endangered
Well,
by their
not only me,
choices and their personalities.
a lot of the counselors, especially the men counselors, and some of the women counselors and some of the women teachers, the teachers have been teaching for a long time. Usually the women, like somebody's grandmother, they're teaching. They could tell you that too. The woman that stands up and they don't take any stuff from anybody. They could be the baddest guy in the world. But some of those hardcore guys who will kill somebody else, they'll listen to those women.
Mm-hmm.
And because they probably had a grandma that probably looked out for them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from those women. In fact, the first year I came back to education, I noticed how everybody would give those women respect. I said, I want to be like that. It was easy for me because I worked at the same, well, let's put it this way. My high school was next door to my part-time job, adult education, that I worked. They're right next door. And the school was in between my new neighborhood and my old neighborhood. So I knew everybody. I knew everybody in that neighborhood. I knew old people, I knew the young people, and I also worked at an elementary school. I ran a program there. So I knew everybody. So it's easy for me to get respect. And most of the time, people who taught in Baltimore or taught in New York or taught in Philly or some other places, most of the kids, they wouldn't give us any harm. In DC, they wouldn't give us a problem like they did some other people. But I had more problems sometimes out of administration than I did some of the students. Because some of the administrators, they were cool when they were teachers or counselors, but when they became principals, some of them, it seemed like they lost their minds. And see, I was fortunate. I went to Dunbar. I taught at Dunbar. Don't think people wouldn't come up your school shooting. But what happened is, if somebody heard, any of those students heard that somebody's going to come to school tomorrow and shoot somebody, guess what? The coaches knew it. The policemen knew it. I had 3 or 4 students would tell me, send me a note, give me a note. It's like 10 or 12 people would tell the music teacher. Students would tell him. The janitor. Everybody had somebody that they could talk to. And see, fortunately, at my school, my high school, not my junior high school I taught at, we had a psychiatrist named Dr. Galate. She volunteered. She worked at Howard University. She treated Marion Barry when he had his problem. She had a daughter that went to school there. Interesting enough, like 30 years earlier, I went to school with her other daughter. She must have did some. I went to school with her other daughter, who was my age, and I went to school with her daughter, and her husband taught me in high school, McKinley Tech. She must have stored the sperm or something. Now, this little girl, I remember one day, it's kind of funny. I remember one day I saw her hanging around some drug dealers. So I called her mother and told her. And when I saw her, I thought she was going to say something bad to me. She said, I know what you did. I knew you was going to do it. I expected that from you. I said, oh, okay. But it was kind of amazing that the Black community, people would know what's going to happen and they make decisions not to allow anything negative to happen, you know?
Okay, right. Yeah, we did. Ramona, can we bring everyone onto the screen now? I want to ask if any of you, Raquel, Sasha, Mike, Novan, Joe, if you want to make it, before we open it up to take questions, if you want to make a comment on anything that any of your other panelists said. Raquel, I was very pleased to hear. Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to talk about that social media thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they did a survey back in the day before social media about TV, and Black people watch like far more TV than other people. And I think that the social media is just an extension of that. You know, I think that, you know, we're different. Like there's more differences to races than skin color.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've studied a lot about race and everything, and there's far more difference. And we always talk about skin color, or even maybe hair texture, but there's a lot more differences. And I just think that the way we're wired, TV and social media, we gravitate to that more. And I think once the thing about it though with social media that's so crazy with us is that like we have no shame, or we have less of a filter, less of an inhibition of what we post on there. Like it's a thing now, like, and Novan knows this with their age, like there was a rapper in Southeast just the other day. I would say maybe 4 or 5 days ago, 23 Racks. You know him, Novan?
Yeah, he went to school with me, middle school with me.
Yeah, 23 Racks.
He's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, he dropped his location. So it's a thing, you know how on your phone, your location, or on social media, you can drop you can put it to where your location can be accessed by people, like the Google Maps where you are.
Right.
And when you're a Black person on social media and you do that, or you're into the hip hop, or you're into the, you know, you just into the hood type sections or sectors of social media, someone will come up and shoot you like they did that kid. They killed him. They came up and killed him. And so many like Black people get killed like that just from dropping their location or not forgetting to turn off their location.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like we bring that stuff, and then also the money. If you're aware with the money phone, cash, like we're the only ones that like are like on social media flashing big wads of cash money. Like most people got credit cards and debit cards. We're the only ones with like $500, $600 worth of cash. Well, I think we just different, man. Like
Okay.
we just different.
Okay. Sasha and Raquel, you want to say anything about that or anything else?
I was going to say that could also be an environmental thing, because also when it comes to who else has to justify the aspect that they do actually have money, like who do we automatically assume as a culture like European Americans, that who do they automatically assume doesn't have money? Black people. So in order to justify that, they show that. But also I was going to say, when it comes to social media and things of that nature, it's also safer. Some people are on the computer screens more because it's safer than being out in their neighborhood. Some people are scrolling because they feel like they identify with more people around them in that area. Just with like, so most of my work was in like the DMV area because I was at Hopkins or like Baltimore and stuff like that. And I'm gonna be online playing games and stuff like that because I can't be outside after a certain time. My
Okay,
mom is
yeah.
not home; she's at
Yeah.
work, and all of my friends are online too. And it's
That's
like,
a good
where am I gonna go? Like, they're like, spend time with your friends. I am. We all on the computer right now. Like, we all on the phone right now.
That's a good
In the
point.
first place. So I think it's like a generational thing. It's like you telling everybody to go outside and play with my friends. All my friends are right here. I can message them right now. Like, so I feel like it's a lack of understanding. But I do think like Black children have to justify their existence more than any other race, and I think because of that it can be like a certain aspect, like you said, Michael, like it was showmanship and having to justify like, oh, I can do this because I have money or I'm tough and stuff like that, because more things get asked of Black children than anyone, right? And I think that's one of the issues, like Devon was saying about like, we don't pamper these children. And one of the reasons why most Black parents parent out of fear is because you want your child to come home and you feel like you need to treat your child at times the way the world treats your Black children, which is not well. So you feel like even though they're in this world that's incredibly difficult for them, they come home and then they got to deal with that too. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be the exact opposite.
You
I
know
shouldn't
what
have to
though?
prepare.
I kind of disagree with that point when you said parent, because I've noticed this, and I've known a lot of people who have noticed this. A lot of the boys are pampered.
Yes.
Mike, you didn't even let me finish.
Okay, no, because I mean, like I'm not, because I didn't feel like my mother was like super duper hard. I feel like
The boys are pampered and the girls are raised.
Yeah, I feel
Well,
like
my
I was
mom always
pampered.
said that she wasn't going to love her sons and raise her daughters.
Yeah, but that
In
was
terms
you.
of
That
like the
was like
difference.
something. That was something that your mother actively did, like
Well, yeah,
intentionally.
but that was something that Marita actually actively did as well. Like, when you identified the fact of being sent to boarding school because she made a conscious effort of looking around and wanting her child to be safe, that's something. They're very much like, I'm very much aware that I'm exception and not a rule. I was probably never
Right.
supposed to make it out of Philly. Like, I get that,
Oh,
which
you
is
from
why I
Philly?
went into
Oh wow.
oh yeah. Yes, which is why
Right.
I went into psychology in the first place. It's one of the reasons why when it comes to combating racial inequities, it's really important for like other Black children to understand that like there are other ways to do that. Like Sasha with like the coding and like the book. My grandma had to go to special stores to find books with Black protagonists.
Mhm.
You can go to your website and you can just buy it,
Right.
and for all things, coding of all things,
Right.
like I think that there's more of a concerted effort to show Black children like there are other ways to fight racial injustices. You can make a book, you can teach people coding, your YouTube channel, like stuff like that. But I think that it's very different than it was before. And I think a lot of times the generational shift is the fact that Black parents, there can be different generations who, I don't know, have issues with the way Black children do things, like may think they're more lackadaisical and stuff like that. But what they don't realize is that that's what they actually fought for. Like, we're able
Right.
to do these things because that's what the other generation. Don't be mad at
Okay.
us.
Okay. I know we want to have a discussion. Joe, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. Now, I agree with everything everybody says, but I do believe since Black people don't control the majority of wealth in this country, I do believe we have to study harder than to get a break, because you could be smart, and there are so many millions of smart people, and you're not going to get recognized. And we sometimes come from schools that are underfunded, and they don't teach the courses, the high level courses. So I think we have to study hard, like the Chinese. That's all they do, 24/7.
I think though that a lot of
Vaughn
black.
wanted to say
Oh,
something.
go ahead, go ahead,
Mike,
Noel. Go
Vaughn
ahead,
wanted
go
to
ahead,
say
Noel.
something.
Go ahead, man.
Vaughn?
Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, finish. Go ahead, finish first. Go ahead,
No, I
finish.
just wanted to say, like, I try to resist seeing like my black existence through the lens of what white people might think or what white people think about us, because a lot of times, man, a lot of the things, especially what Raquel just mentioned, those are the pressures you're feeling are from other black people, man. Like I never felt like nothing from white people really. Most of the pressure I felt, like to show I had money or to show to show that I was tough or to show that I wasn't scared to do something. These things, it was from black people, man. It wasn't from the white people.
Okay, Vaughn?
I would say I just feel like let's piggyback on what Daddy Joe was talking about. I just feel like we don't try hard enough. You know what I'm saying, like we don't put forth as much effort as everyone else would. Like especially I know like in the city, when it comes to school, I just feel like a lot of people just don't try. Like they just don't try because they don't care. Because they don't care because they feel like they're not going to get nowhere. And they
Okay.
feel like that because of things that have happened in the past.
I agree with it. I
Back
agree with what
and
Devon's saying, though. I
and to
agree with
piggyback on what Uncle Michael said, uh, what he just said, it's not even just black people doing that. Not even just the black people around you. It's social media as well. Like you're trying to keep up with what you see on Instagram. And I just feel like we don't realize that Instagram is it's not real. It's
It's
not.
it's not real. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Sasha,
actually
yeah.
in real life. And
Sasha,
then,
Sasha, did you want to join in or not? This is a great conversation.
Um, yeah, I would say that one of the issues is that people are trying to be something that they're not. Like that's a major thing. So I went to McKinley Tech. I'm from Northeast DC, and like I didn't tell any of my friends that I wrote the book because like I didn't want them to try to clown me for it, or I didn't want to get like embarrassed because like, girl, why are you writing a book? So I think that like that's the issue as well. Like people that are smart or do want to do amazing things, they don't feel comfortable. Um,
anti-intellectualism. We have a very anti-intellectual culture.
Yeah, let her talk. Let her
um,
finish.
yes, I think that's like kind of a thing to just not really being able to be yourself or like wanting to express yourself because you think somebody may think something negatively about it.
Okay, let's. Are there any questions, Ramona, or do we want to continue conversation?
Well, I agree with what the young lady said about, you kind of like when you good at something that's not basketball or go or rap, or fashion. If you have a talent that's outside of one of those realms, yeah, you're gonna be seen as kind of like a square or something like that. So most of us do try to, become good at stuff that's within the realm of fashion, sports, or entertainment or things like that, because you will get acclaim, you will be accepted because children want acceptance. Like look at Novon, like for instance, being the quarterback at that school is far more acclaimed than being the valedictorian or the salutatorian or whatever, or going to LSU. You know what I'm saying? More people gonna want to be claim him for that. Oh, that's my nephew. Or that's so and so who
Yeah,
played football. Blah blah blah. Then that's so and so who's the salutatorian. You know what I'm saying?
But
Raquel.
is a claim the
Raquel.
goal? Like
Raquel.
should a
Go ahead.
claim be the goal overall?
Yes,
Like
when you're a
one,
child, yes, that's all you want is claim. Like little, like one thing I noticed is going to West Town is white kids, they have different metrics and different things that they can be acclaimed. You can be the man. A white kid can be the man. I'm talking about have the girls chasing him for being, a good student or being involved in extracurricular activities or being, in this, this activity or being a really good guy, like a really good person is whatnot.
so
And
what you're describing are like that's for the justification for systemic issues, right? So like one of the things that a lot of people will do is compare like the expectations or the way that Black people present themselves compared to, I think most of the time it's European Americans. But one of the reasons why that's unfair is because it's very easy to allow a European American person to be comfortable in their skin when their skin has never been judged off of anything except for positively. Why shouldn't I think amazingly of myself and want to achieve things? No one's ever told me I couldn't do different. But that's not the same thing for the Black community. So to have that comparison in the first place is one, unfair. Two, you said that like they want acclaim, but just because you want acclaim doesn't mean that's something that you want. My baby wants candy every single second of the day. That's not what you need, you know. So one of the aspects is also the values that we're instilling in the community as a whole, in terms of Devon mentioned like at the end of the day, you said that they go for like hoop and stuff like that because they feel like that's what they can attain because they don't see anything else doing better. So the systemic issue and the solution with that is showing them that you can do better, like having representation, like with Sasha with the books, or showing them that you can have other aspects and show your full self and not be judged for it. That's like a collective issue.
So for example, to take Sasha's example, she was justified in feeling that if she revealed that she'd written this book, she'd be ragged for that. She would be teased for that because of the anti-intellectualism around her, of the students. Now, how should she have dealt with that? What's the option? How could she have creatively said, I've written this book and have it turn out differently? Raquel?
I think she did it right the first way. I think that she clearly had enough values in herself and belief in herself that I'm going to do something I know it's going to be good and I don't care what anyone else thinks.
Okay.
And hence Forbes and publications and what, you know, like, I think, you know, one of the aspects is, yeah, we want acclaim, but I think that one of the values that we have to instill in all children, especially Black children, is do it scared. Like, a lot of people feel like you have to do things and you have to feel comfortable with it. I feel uncomfortable with 9 out of 10 things that I used to do. You still did it, Sasha.
Right.
And that's like one of the main things you do. I think it's like we need to get individuals comfortable with the discomfort of being like, well, everyone doesn't like it. So I'm not invited to the table. Bring a chair. I don't want to be at the table. I'll bring my own building. You know, like it doesn't, I think that, you know, there's this focus on the claim, but when we get down to it, it's really the values that we instill. So one of the aspects is representation, but the value should be, who cares?
But you're saying that those values aren't.
I say, who cares at least once? Like, who cares?
But you're saying that those values aren't being instilled because of something that white people did in the past?
No, I'm saying the comparison to European Americans is an unfair one because they have not had the historical context that we do when it comes to expectations, systemic racism, discrimination in terms of things that we can do. So comparing us to them is unfair. Now, I don't know if collectively as a whole, if it's instilled in everyone, but I know it was instilled in my household. Seems like, I mean, just from the book, it was instilled in yours, you know, but I also acknowledge the fact that very much being exceptions and not being the rule, like we have to come up with a bigger way to disperse that, right? Like
Michael,
to help greater communities.
I don't want to cut off your answer, but there is a question that's been in the chat for a minute, and then we can come back. And I'm not quite sure, but it says, thank you for the forum from Luciana. What are your thoughts regarding portfolio assessment in recognizing strengths of students? Joe or Raquel, I'm not sure exactly what that
is. That
means.
A type of assessment that they're doing in school to because I know like one of the things is trying to go more towards strength-based versus deficit-based thinking. Is that what she's mentioning?
I'm not sure. Maybe she could clarify or
and also which age range.
Yeah, and which age range. Well, we'll see.
But I'll tell you something. Now I didn't ever hear about this, but one thing I found out about students, if they feel they look okay, they'll work harder for you. I used to have women teachers come around and tell some of my male students, oh, you're good looking. You need to work harder. You know, the student works harder. It never failed. I even had counselors. I even told my students that counselors only give me good looking students. And so I don't want anybody worried about if they're ugly or somebody saying they're ugly. And, you know, I had good years. That may sound funny.
That raise their esteem.
They worked hard. If they knew they were good looking.
But you know what? In our community, good looking for the men is just a pair of name brand tennis shoes.
Well, good looking to the women. The women teacher would tell the men if they're good looking.
But I mean,
and all the men See, Dunbar was different. Dunbar had a lot of male teachers.
Yeah.
And we had some beautiful little girls who were brown skinned. They were never told. They always go, "Oh, you ugly, you this, you that." Every now and then I run into some of those students. They tell us thank you. And I'm not the only one. And we had some of the teachers, I don't know if you knew about the Afrocentric studying. There's a lot of books you read about Afrocentric. And we'd have people come to our school. Some of them are still alive, like any people that specialize in studying the history of Africa and the glory days and even the modern times and all the inventions that people have done. Even the women and during enslaved times, African black women in America made a lot of inventions. We'll show them some videotapes. Of course, we did the one with the black men.
But you know what, Joe? None of that stuff right there. I don't think it moves the meter. I don't think learning that great things that black people did in the past moved the meter.
No, it wasn't only in the
black
past.
kids.
It's you know Ivan Van Sertima?
No, yeah, no.
He
but
wrote
what
over. It was modern times and ancient times.
But
It
what I'm
has
saying
an
is
effect.
teaching
It has
some
an
kids.
effect. Hey, Michael, you know what? I know what you specialize in.
No, hold
You,
on. Listen
you
to what I'm saying.
specialize.
Hold on. No, listen to what I'm saying. Let me just finish this. I don't. When I say move the meter, I'm not saying that you shouldn't teach them that. I'm saying that I don't think that it has an effect on them to where it makes like because we also know that there's an issue in the black community, right? And that issue, I don't think that that's the fix. Everybody's been looking for a fix for these
But you're
issues in the
wrong.
black
It had an
community.
effect on a lot of people because a lot of my students told me it had an effect on them.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is
It does have an effect. When you learn something about your history, your genes, you've been told the lies about your history. And you know what? I had two minors. Business was one of my minors, and history was one of my minors. The stuff I learned in history, and then back in the 80s when they opened up a lot of bookstores, I read books written by white men and black men that told
but
a
you
different
have to want to read books though. Like you have to have that most like you said the other day. You were saying this the other day. You said you had to make things fun for the blacks. You said the
But
black
that
male
was a
students.
problem, Mike. Let me tell you about that.
Joe, last question. I want to ask everybody one last thing. How do we normalize conversations about mental health in our community? How do we make it normal to talk about that? Dr. Raquel, we're going to finish up.
I think the newer generation is already doing that. To be honest,
Okay.
like the younger, I think Gen Z and I think they've already pretty much done that and increased the comfort. I think part of that was due to representation with more individuals talking about it, having more representation of Black clinicians. Anytime I've started at a practice or when I'm in my training, my caseload was full, like wait list the first day because there's never Black clinicians who are able to work in these positions. So you also want to see yourself in the people that you're working with because historically people prefer race concordant relationships, and it's not just Black people. Like historically, just research wise, people prefer to work with people who look like them. You feel like they will have a bit more stake in
Right.
your health because you may remind them of somebody, like, oh, he looks like my uncle, maybe I should treat him better, and that justification, especially because of the health disparities overall. So I think there needs to be more individuals who are going into the mental health field, but because in order to do that, I think we need more funding. I think we need more representation, but just normalizing the experience that we do go to mental health professionals. House business doesn't have to stay in the house. You can see a mental health professional and, I used to say, I just want someone to work with someone who I feel like heard the Black Album at one point in their life. Like I just wanted to work with someone who I felt knew things of that nature. So more representation of that. And I think if more mental health professionals were on social media, which is where most children are, and just having normal education and educated professionals, that will be helpful. Like get out of your comfort zone. At this point, as a professional, it's part of your job to provide education on social media. It just is.
We got 3 minutes left. Sasha, normalizing mental health.
I agree. I would say because most children are on social media, that'll probably be a good way to start. But like Raquel said, I think that that's something that a lot of kids or like young adults are doing now. So I see it a lot on like Twitter or like Instagram, where people are being more open about the different things that they're going through, and also being able to see like celebrities and influencers talk about those things as well. Definitely has like allowed other people to open up more.
Vaughn?
I would say allowing those with mental health to come to you instead of forcing them to talk to you. So like at my school, you know, they've had various events where they try to make you feel more comfortable, but instead of making you feel comfortable, it made you feel awkward about yourself.
Okay.
And like reaching out to you, trying to force you to talk to them, grabbing you with food and events. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I feel like I have an issue with who I am, if something that at home is bothering me, I feel like make me feel comfortable and allow me to come to you instead of forcing it out of me.
Okay.
Can I just ask, like, just what would have made you feel more comfortable? Just so I can write this down. What would have made you feel more comfortable? Like, not the events and stuff, but what would you have preferred?
Okay, so like me, Prince, I have a counselor that I talk to about a lot of things. I feel like she just made me feel comfortable. She just was treating me like acting normal. You know what I'm saying? Like acting like there was nothing wrong with me, like allowing me to wait till
Exactly.
there was an event
Right.
for me to talk about rather than, oh, so how was this? Did this happen? Did that happen? I was like, I came to her, Miss Stewart, guess what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just made it fun to
Right.
talk about rather than making me feel weird and awkward.
Great.
I don't
Great.
feel like it was like one thing specifically that she did or said that made me want to talk about it. It was just like over time, building relations and building up. You know what I'm saying?
And
She
you
was
knew
there and she was welcoming.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
you knew
welcome,
she'd
that's the
listen.
main thing.
You knew she'd listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what it
And
is, she would listen.
Right.
She wouldn't judge. That's
Right.
the main thing. Being an ear instead of a mouth.
Oh wow. Okay. Psychologist Dr.
Oh,
Vaughn.
yeah, I like
Dr.
that. I had to
Vaughn. Okay,
unmute for that.
Dr. Vaughn. Put that single out now. Mike, normalizing mental health in our conversation, in our community.
I think normalizing therapy is the key because so many Black people need therapy. It's one thing to talk about your mental illness and all that stuff and this da da da. You need a lot of Black people need to get down with a trained professional and talk it out and unload a lot of that stuff because we don't have that. We don't normalize therapy. Therapy is looked down in our kind of like in our culture, kind of like the Italians. Remember that analyze this where the mobster tried to go to the see the. It's like all Black people. We come from such tough environments that we all like kind of like got that gangster thing where it's like, hey, unload, but you gotta go. I think if a lot of these young men, Novon's age, got therapy, the streets would be a lot safer.
Okay. Old man Joe. Last word.
And I agree with Michael.
No, I don't agree.
Now, I also think if the Republicans and the Democrats get their act together, have free health care, and who's the good-looking young man now? Put him up on the screen that has mental problems, and let everybody, like the girls did, the tennis players,
Yeah.
the athlete, let everybody know therapy is okay. But if the good-looking person's not going to show up on the screen, most people are not going to follow it.
That's a good
A
point.
popular person.
I want to thank you all. This has been a wonderful conversation. Excellent. It exceeded my expectations. And I just want to again urge you, if you are a parent, a caretaker, or care about the future of Black youth, Saving Our Sons, Raising Black Children in a Turbulent World, new edition with 50 pages of resources for parents and caretakers. I want to thank Sasha, Raquel, Mike, Novon, my husband, Joe, and I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. And once again,
I gotta have Dr. Raquel on my show.
You say what?
I gotta have.
Listen, send me an email.
Yeah, I have.
Something tells me it's gonna have to be multiple shows because I feel like it's gonna go over time. But yeah,
I think I think though, because your talking points, I think my group, my crowd, it would be very exciting.
So we'll do a part two. No, we just have a show with you and Raquel.
Yeah, this is very exciting. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Exactly. This has been
salute.
great.
Imagine, can you hear me?
Yes.
He had me on this show. His ratings went up very high.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank
Okay,
you.
take it easy. Bye, everybody.
See you later, Mama Rita.
Okay.